You're not lost. You're just carrying too many voices that aren't yours. And the reason everything feels so cloudy, the reason you can't tell what's real, what's right, or what's next, is because you're still trying to figure it out by force, still trying to think your way into peace, still trying to solve your life like a problem instead of letting it speak to you. But here's the thing no one ever teaches us. Clarity doesn't come when you grip harder. It comes when you stop gripping at all. We live in a world that praises control. Plan more. Push through it. Think ahead. But sometimes, the more you try to control everything, the more tangled it gets. You try to fix the uncertainty. You try to predict the outcome. You try to bend life to your map. And all that noise drowns out the only signal that's ever truly guided you. Your own inner knowing. The quiet voice. The one underneath all the fear, the pressure, the timelines, the expectations. That voice doesn't shout. It whispers. And to hear it, you don't need more pressure. You need less. That's where surrender comes in. Not as defeat, not as giving up, but as a return. A return to what you actually feel. A return to what feels real when you drop the performance. A return to what you already know. When you stop trying to control what you wish was true. Because the more you surrender, the clearer everything becomes. It's not about becoming passive. It's about finally becoming present. It's about letting go of what's not working, even if it looks right on paper. It's about loosening your grip on people, plans, and outcomes, so your truth can rise without being buried by noise. And once that happens, once you finally stop forcing the fog to clear, you'll start to notice something powerful. The path was never gone. It was just covered by your fear of not knowing. Sometimes the reason we can't see clearly is because we're not supposed to. Not yet. Not until we let go of what we think should happen. Not until we stop demanding life show up on our schedule. You see, life has its own rhythm. And every time we fight that rhythm, every time we push against its timing, we create friction, stress, confusion, resistance, and the worst part, we start mistaking our tension for truth. We think, if I feel anxious, it must mean I'm behind. If I feel uncertain, it must mean I'm failing. If I can't make it happen right now, it must not be meant for me. But what if the fog isn't a sign you're lost? What if it's a sign you're in a transition? A space between the version of you that chased control and the version of you that finally learns to trust. That's what surrender really is. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the moment you decide to stop living in a constant state of mental war, where you stop trying to fix every outcome before it even happens. Because here's the quiet truth. Most of the pressure you carry isn't coming from life itself. It's coming from your need to know, your addiction to certainty, your fear of not being in control. And the more you obsess over clarity, the more you push it away. Because clarity doesn't respond to control. It responds to stillness. The moment you let go, the moment you stop wrestling with the future, your mind settles. And when your mind settles, your inner voice starts to rise again. That quiet, steady knowing that's been buried under noise. This is where clarity lives. Not in the pressure, not in the thinking, not in the endless fixing, but in the pause, in the breath, in the trust. Surrender isn't about giving up your power. It's about remembering where your real power comes from. Not from force, but from presence. Not from needing to know, but from being willing to feel. We're taught that to succeed, we need to constantly strive, to hustle, to chase, to push our way into the life we want. But there's a difference between action and force. One is rooted in clarity. The other is rooted in fear. When you act from alignment, things unfold. You're still putting in effort, yes, but it's not frantic. It's not desperate. It's not you trying to control every variable like your whole life depends on it. But when you act from fear, everything feels heavy. You question yourself constantly. You second guess every decision. And the more you force it, the more resistance you meet. It's like trying to swim upstream while the river is begging you to let it carry you. And it's not just about decisions or goals. This touches every part of your life. Relationships. When you chase someone's approval, when you try to prove your worth, It always slips further away. But when you're at peace with who you are, when you stop trying to control how people see you, the right connections come naturally. Purpose. When you obsess over figuring it all out, the answers get muddy. But when you allow space, when you live with curiosity instead of panic, you start seeing signs, patterns, synchronicities. You start feeling your direction instead of trying to calculate it. Even healing. You can't rush the process of becoming whole again. You can't force forgiveness, or force self-love, or force peace of mind. These things grow when you stop grasping and start allowing. So what's the difference between the people who feel stuck and the ones who seem to flow? It's not intelligence, it's not luck. It's their relationship with control. They have learned that holding on too tight suffocates everything, and they've started to replace that grip with trust, with listening, with letting life breathe again. This doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing from a place that isn't ruled by fear. It means moving forward without demanding that everything goes exactly your way. It means showing up without needing the whole plan to be written. Because the more you surrender to the moment, the more the moment starts giving you exactly what you need. There's a hidden kind of strength in letting go, not the dramatic kind people talk about when they say, just move on, but the quiet inner shift that happens when you finally stop fighting with life. Because let's be honest, the fight isn't really out there. It's inside. It's the constant inner dialogue that tells you you're falling behind. You should be somewhere else by now. You need to fix this right now. And every time you believe it, you tighten your grip. You speed up. You try to micromanage your future. And without even realizing it, you stop living. You stop noticing the way the light hits the trees when you step outside. You stop hearing your own thoughts because they're drowned by pressure. You stop breathing deeply and everything becomes a to-do list. But here's the shift. What if you didn't need to have all the answers today? What if peace wasn't something to earn, but something to return to? What if clarity is actually your natural state, and all the noise is what blocks it? When you drop the need to force things, your energy changes. You become lighter, and people feel it. You stop needing validation, and suddenly your confidence becomes real. You stop grasping, and the things that align with you start showing up without chasing. It sounds simple, but it's radical. In a world that teaches you to chase every second, it's an act of rebellion to just pause, to breathe, to trust the unfolding instead of constantly rewriting it. Because surrender doesn't mean you give up on what you want. It means you give up the pressure to control how and when it comes. It means you stop resisting the season you're in and start walking through it with presence. And when you do that, you begin to notice life always had a rhythm. You were just trying to outrun the beat. There's a point on your journey where you realize not everything that feels urgent is actually important, and not everything that feels quiet is meaningless. In fact, the quiet often holds the biggest answers. The whispers you ignore, those are usually the things your soul is actually trying to say. We're so used to thinking clarity comes from noise, from constant motion, checking boxes, asking everyone what they think. But real clarity shows up when things get still. The reason so many people feel lost isn't because they don't know who they are. It's because they're drowning in everyone else's expectations, trying to live a life they think they should be living, forcing themselves into plans that don't feel right, timelines that don't feel real. But life doesn't speak through pressure. It speaks through alignment, through what feels natural to your nervous system, what brings you peace without having to justify it. You can chase success your whole life and still feel empty. You can check off every goal and still feel like you missed something, because fulfillment doesn't come from forcing. It comes from tuning in. And here's the strange part. When you stop trying so hard to control what life gives you, you start receiving what actually fits you. You realize not everything that's loud is meant for you. Not every opportunity is aligned. Not every person needs a place in your story. When you slow down, you start recognizing what's real. You begin to trust the timing of your own path, not because someone told you to, but because your life starts to reflect it. You notice how ease begins to replace tension, how decisions come quicker, not from urgency, but from peace, how people who drain you naturally fall away, and those who support your growth start to show up without effort. That's the beauty of surrender. It doesn't remove you from life, it roots you in it. You stop running, And for the first time, you actually arrive. Sometimes the reason things don't work out the way you planned is because life had something softer for you. Not necessarily easier, but softer in the way it fits. Because when you're forcing everything, your timeline, your healing, your relationships, your career, you end up carrying tension that doesn't even belong to you. You carry the weight of comparison, the need to prove something, the pressure to constantly move, even when your body is begging you to rest. And slowly, you lose your sense of trust, not just in others, but in yourself, in your ability to feel what's right, to choose what aligns, to let go of what doesn't. But what if you stopped asking, how do I fix this? And started asking, what feels right to me now? That small shift changes everything. It invites you back into your own rhythm. It reconnects you to your body, your breath, your boundaries. And from that place, something opens. You stop trying to squeeze into spaces that don't feel like home. You stop needing to be chosen because you've chosen yourself. You stop begging for signs because you've learned to listen. And once you reach that state, you don't need to control anymore. You trust. You move when it's time. You pause without guilt. And you stop tying your worth to how productive or on track you appear. It's a new kind of power. One that doesn't shout, but knows. One that doesn't rush, but arrives. And what's wild is, when you start showing up from that place, the world starts responding differently. You get more done by doing less. You connect more deeply with fewer people. You attract more clarity by asking fewer questions. Because life starts to match your frequency, not your fear. Here's the truth you were probably never told. You're allowed to stop striving without giving up. You're allowed to slow down without falling behind. You're allowed to stop fixing and start feeling again. Because surrender isn't the end of effort. It's the beginning of wisdom. Life doesn't reward the tight grip. It rewards the open palm. And the moment you stop trying to shape every piece, you start noticing how beautifully things begin to shape around you. Not always in ways you expected, but in ways that make sense to your soul. The less you force, the more you feel aligned. The more you surrender, the more life becomes clear. Because clarity isn't something you chase. It's something that meets you in stillness. So wherever you are right now, breathe. You're not lost. You're just shedding what no longer fits. And trust me, that's not a breakdown. It's a realignment. Let go of the need to control every outcome. Trust the version of you that doesn't need to fight for peace anymore. And if this message resonated with you on any level, drop a simple word in the comments, aligned. Let's fill the space below with that energy, because someone else might need to see it today. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Every week, we go deeper into the kind of mindset that frees you from pressure and brings you closer to your truth. Until then, just remember, you were never behind. You were just waiting to flow.